Karen, this is so interesting. I'm a little surprised.
Welcome, dreamer. Thank you for being on.
Hi.
Please tell me your dream. And before we hear your dream, are there a couple of things that you would like to share about yourself?
I'm a mom of two young boys. I really enjoy working out and dancing, which is part of the topic of the dream.
I'm very eager to hear your dream. So please tell me your dream.
It starts with me coming to awareness that I am in the place where I normally do ecstatic dance. And if you don't know what ecstatic dance is, it is a meditative rave style kind of dancing. And this one, it's as most are, it's a sober event, which is important for the dream, for the context of the dream. In my dream, I become aware that I'm there and realize that I was not aware that I was there, that I had been blacked out, and became very aware that I had been drugged and woke up at my home ecstatic dance, which is a place of deep comfort for me. And I'm there, and I felt the urge to, and then started to apologize for my behavior to the people that were there, not knowing exactly what I was apologizing for, but knowing that if I was blacked out, that I must have been acting in a way that was belligerent. And I didn't really get a lot of feedback from the people that I was apologizing to. And next thing I know, in the dream, I'm on the ground, like on my hands and knees, foraging around for something on the floor. It's a wooden floor. And I'm all of a sudden picking up piles, like balls of human feces. And that is my dream.
Okay. As I suspected, there's a lot to work with. So let's get started. So tell me the first image that you have in this dream, this first image.
Me standing on the wooden dance floor, seeing a familiar face and realizing that I had been at that place, but had no memory of the most recent moments and minutes leading up to my realization that, oh, I am here.
Okay. That wooden dance floor is the home of the ecstatic dance that you enjoy.
Yes.
Okay. Now, say a little bit more. I know you described it a little bit earlier, but say a little bit more about this as something that you enjoy, something that you do. You tell me, what are some words that you put on that?
It is my community
Okay.
of people who I often do not know their names. There's no speaking aloud at ecstatic dance. So I will dance with people and next to people for months and not know them. But there's love and respect and a shared commitment to the dance rules. It is a very safe place. And I ideally would be there every weekend,
Mm-hmm.
every Sunday. Aspirationally, I would
Mm-hmm.
be there at least once a week.
What is so important about this is that the setting of our dream is a place in psyche. So this is a place in your own psyche that has to do with love, respect, shared commitment that's very safe, and the feeling of community. But what's also interesting about this is that it is not based on conversation. It's not
Mm-hmm.
based on what we usually think about when we think about our community. We think about speaking with one another, sharing verbally with one another. This is so different. This is such a different thing. It's a physical community. Have I got that right?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a physical community. It's a somatic community as opposed to a thinking verbal community.
Yes. So
Okay.
for a lot of people, it transcends into a spiritual community because the connection does leave that intellectual space and flows for so many right into spiritual.
Yes. So this is so interesting that this is the setting for the dream, that the setting for the dream is this place, and that most importantly, it is safe. It is a safe place and a desired place. As you said, you do this every weekend if you had the opportunity to do this. So going forward and whatever happens in the rest of the dream, this container is safe. So that encourages us to plunge into whatever we see in the rest of the dream, knowing that it is contained safely.
Okay.
Okay. So that's where you are aware that you are. Now, what happens next?
I'm aware that I'm there, and
Mhm.
then I'm aware that I have been drugged because of this awareness that I was blacked out. How could I already be here in the middle of this experience of this dance and not know how I got here or what led up to this moment? I have been blacked out. And therefore, because I am always sober at these events,
Mm-hmm.
I must have been drugged.
Ah, that's so important to note.
Yes, yes. These events, it's very much encouraged that you attend sober, and I always follow that. It's also it
Mhm.
happens on Sunday morning, so it's it's a time where it's very easy to be sober. It's Sunday morning.
Emphasizing the idea that it's spiritual. it's it's like
Mm-hmm.
church.
That line is drawn quite often. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Again, this is terribly important. Can you remember the feeling tone around this realization in the dream?
Yes, it was embarrassment and shame,
Okay.
nervousness.
So here's an idea that I'm going to present to you, dreamer. And it is, as always, up to you to tell me and to tell our viewers if this rings true with you, what I'm about to say, if it rings true with you. You get to say, yeah, that could be true, or yes, indeed, that is very true, or no, that's not true, because in the end, the dream is yours. And so my job is to make suggestions and run them past you, and then you get to say. So here's a thought that I had. This may be a stand in for a level of unconsciousness. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. I don't mean actually blacking out or going to sleep, but I'm talking about being unaware. unaware possibly of, sometimes we say things to people, or we do things and we just don't have an awareness immediately of how it affects them. We're unaware. We're unaware of interactions in our workplace or interactions in our family that unless somebody responds immediately, we don't know if we've offended or come across too aggressively or in some way acted rudely or something like that. We just don't have an awareness of it. I am guilty of doing this from time to time, just sort of plowing through life without really being totally aware that I just ran somebody over, figuratively speaking. So I'm wondering if this is pointing to something like that, as opposed to I was blacked out. It's more like I was unaware. There's some unawareness of something, some unconsciousness. I was not conscious of something.
In general, I do tend to, I'm a very like take charge kind of person. And it's like I'll just like go and get it done, and can come across as assertive and kind of just very matter of fact at times. So that is certainly within me to, sometimes not take people's feelings into account when I am in like productivity mode. But I don't know what it would mean in this context, at the dance or in the stream.
Okay. My idea around this is that the dream's inviting you to examine, and we'll say more about this in a minute with other elements of the dream, inviting you to examine the possibilities of this showing up in any realm, in any sphere of your life. But because it shows up here in this very safe place, to know that it's okay for you to do that, that it's scary sometimes to look at our own behavior, but it's okay because it's here. So let's keep going, and you'll see what I'm talking about, I hope, maybe. So you had this feeling that you had been drugged, that you had blacked out, and there was this embarrassment, shame, and nervousness. And then what occurs to you, or what happens next?
What happens next is that I feel the need to have to apologize to these certain people that I don't necessarily know. I don't know their names, for instance, but I can think of a couple of these people that I've seen week after week after week there. And I'm not certain exactly what I'm apologizing for.
So those are important. Those are important questions if we feel moved to apologize. And say more about apologizing.
So in the dream, it's me walking up to people, and I'm not thinking about the social norm and the guideline of not speaking during these events, and saying something along the lines of, I don't know what I did, but it wasn't my fault. I was drugged. I must have been drugged, but I'm sorry about whatever I was just doing. And there was this emphasis on, like, it wasn't my fault. I must have been drugged.
Okay. I was drugged, but based on what we just talked about, may I, in parentheses, put I was unconscious?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Now, I want to talk just for a moment about the concept of ego. And the concept of ego means the I, the I in the dream. The word ego means I, or I am. And the ego in our waking life is the same ego as the ego in our dreaming life. And there's sort of it's not a hard and fast rule, but it's a sort of a guideline that is used when thinking about dreams, and that is that the I in the dream, the ego in the dream, probably gets it wrong. And that the purpose of the dream is to show ego something and to correct it. That something's going on in waking life, perhaps, or something's going on in internal life that needs a course correction. And so we get a dream. And so what I'm thinking is there is a something, and you get to think about what it might be, but that there is a something that has either happened in your waking life, or there's a way of you thinking that you need to wake up for and come to terms with. If not apologize to a person or to anybody out there, to sort of come to terms with. Because to apologize for anything to anybody requires an awareness and a little bit of humility. So I'm proposing something's being brought to your attention about this, that there is something that you're doing or thinking that you need to be aware of and need a bit of a course correction. And I think the rest of the dream might, well, we'll get to it. You were about to say?
Well, Karen, it's been on my mind a lot with some things that have happened in my life recently with, I'm going through a divorce, with family conflict, with some professional turmoil. I've been thinking a lot about my role in these things, my part in difficult things in life.
Yeah. And that may be what this dream is commenting on. Again, I want to reassure you, though, based on where it is, it's at the safe place. It's
The
safe for you to do
conflict
it.
is at the safe place, like, or I'm sorry, like what I need to bring to my awareness has to do with a safe place.
Know that there's a safe place in your psyche for doing this, for
Mm.
examining what was my part in this, that it is
Mm-hmm.
safe to do that. As
Mm-hmm.
painful as it might be to come to some conclusions about, okay, my part in this and this and this, yeah, okay, I need to own that, or whatever it is that you're being asked to do. That can be so painful, but it's safe to do so. It not only is it safe to do so, but it may actually have a spiritual component to it if you are willing to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Tough stuff. Absolutely tough stuff. And one of the words that you used early on was that when you were describing this dream the first time, you used the term belligerent. You said, I might have been belligerent. And so that's an interesting word. Do you want to think about where that might have shown up? I'm not sure I know how to spell it.
I don't know how to spell it either. I don't know. There's a couple of things that come to mind, like
Uh-huh.
when I was a teenager or in
Uh-huh.
my very early 20s, like
Mm-hmm.
drinking and getting drunk and being belligerent,
Uh-huh.
but that's like the only real
Mm-hmm.
draw that I'm having to that
Mm-hmm.
word.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what does the word belligerent mean?
Maybe there is one more draw that I've had to that word. one more connection, one more line. Because when I think of what that word means, I think of someone yelling, being aggressive. I think of someone being, if not physically aggressive,
Uh,
physically threatening, like they may be, arms flailing, coming close, yelling in a face. And I will tell you that I was dealing with a lot of that at the end of my marriage from my partner.
yeah, yeah. And that divorce is fairly raw and fairly recent.
That's right. It's not final yet. We
Uh-huh.
have been separated for almost 1 year.
That is raw. That is tough. Oh, yeah. Okay. Do you feel like we're getting somewhere here?
I do, but I'm feeling like I have more questions, more
Okay.
questions. It maybe means that we are getting somewhere. Maybe I need more questions.
Great. Okay. So this happens. Now, what's the next piece of this dream?
Okay. The next piece of this dream, and I did leave out one aspect of it when I gave you the broad overview in the
Okay.
beginning.
Okay.
The next aspect is that I'm on my hands and knees on the wooden floor of the dance floor. And I've got these like well formed balls of human feces. And I just know it's human. I don't know how, but I just know that it's human feces. And that there's like rhinestone studded or something absolutely bizarre and ridiculous. And I've
Um,
got two handfuls of like rhinestone studded, well formed human feces balls.
I am thrilled by this. I have to tell you, this is
Oh, Karen.
so this is well formed, you said.
Yes. Like it's not like a glop like dropping all over the
Uh-huh.
place. And I've got two little boys. So we're like,
Yeah.
this is not my normal interaction with human feces.
Hmm.
This is something very, very unique. And I woke up from this dream like, what the hell was that?
So are you sure they were rhinestones?
I'm not, but it felt like that's what it felt like. I didn't see them in the dream. It
Uh-huh.
was a sensory experience.
Ah, so okay, okay. So all right. First of all, to be on one's hands and knees, what does that mean?
Yeah, I guess I want to say, apologizing, giving like, bowing one's head, giving some, higher form, a great deal of respect, or being in like a subservient position.
Which goes along with what we said on the page before about apologizing.
Mm-hmm.
There's and the idea again that ego from time to time has got to adopt or has to remember a bit of humility. And so there's that. I just have to tell you, this is great. And I hope I'm going to be able to prove it to you. All right.
Okay.
So may I just use the word shit? Let's just use it. Okay.
Please,
Yeah.
please.
So when shit shows up in dreams, believe it or not, it is a wonderful sign because in Jungian psychology, Carl Jung very famously said, there is gold in the shit. What he meant by that was if we are willing to look at the parts of ourselves, if we are willing to look at stuff that we did or attitudes that we hold that we don't don't want to look at, that we have disowned, he called it our shadow aspect. We can call it for today's work our shitty aspect, the our capacity and potential for acting shitty, our capacity and potential for making a mess of things in our relationships, in our workplace. It depends. You would have to identify that. But the idea here is that if we face our shit, there is something else in it. And that's why I asked you if you thought or knew that these were rhinestones and not diamonds, because the outcome of facing our shadow and dealing with our own shit, cleaning up our own shit, is a tremendous release of energy and creativity and all sorts of things, because the status quo is eating up our energy. But if we'll just look at our stuff, if we'll look at our stuff and own it, then it releases a great deal of energy. And I think that your self-examination recently of your part in certain aspects absolutely points to this. I think this dream is like showing you a picture of that very thing. This is that very thing that you're doing. And in a way, it's an affirmation of that review, if you will, of how did this go? What was my part? What would I have done differently? How can I look at this now? What can I take away from this? What can I learn from this? What kind of person do I want to be going forward? That sort of thing. That's where the gold is, or where the valuable aspect of this is. I'm really wondering if those are rhinestones or if that's really the gold in this. I'm throwing that out as something for you to look at, to think about.
Yeah. Well, in the dream, it was a tactile feeling of like very like formed, and I could definitely see how it could have been diamonds, because there was these formed edges that felt like, I just think of little, yeah, like a little diamond shapes, little kinds of rhinestones that you would use in like an arts and crafts kind of thing or something like that, because that's where my life is right now, is like little arts and crafts things. Definite possibility of diamonds. And I will say too, I don't know like if this is really pertinent here, but those areas of my life that I had listed to you before were all for many, many, many years going very, very well,
Right.
And then just over the past few years, things have, it like nothing happens all at once, right? Like
yes, that's right. Yes.
It spirals, and then like all these things came to a head in all these different areas. Whereas for many, many years of my life, there had been like incredible stability in all of those areas.
May I ask you how old you are?
I'm 37.
Perfect. Okay. There you are. Anywhere between the ages of 35 and 55 is midlife. And that's the midlife turn. The first part of our adult life is building, going. And then there is a turn where we have to reassess and reevaluate and decide what has meaning and what doesn't, and how to grab onto those things that have meaning. And there's a sorting, and it sounds like you did some sorting here, a sorting out of what is feeding you, nourishing you, and what was not. And that's the job of midlife. And then to remember to build meaning going forward. None of us in our 20s, and many of us for the whole time of our 30s, it's rare that we pause long enough to do this kind of reevaluation, but midlife calls us to do that so that we can make meaning of the second half of life. So this is a fantastic dream of how to do that. And I want to go back and talk about the ego just one more second about this. So much of first half of life is ego driven. The second half of life has to put ego in its proper place so that it is meaning driven. And if you are a spiritual religious person, you start reorienting to instead of ego being the driver, you start thinking about, but what is my ultimate purpose in this life? And it might not be what we thought it was in the first part of life. What am I being called into now? And it requires us to listen to sometimes something other than just our ego needs and desires. There's another deeper, wiser part of us. And we can call that the God within. We can call that Christ consciousness. Jung called it the self with a capital S. And it is the animating aspect of our lives. And to align with that is what gives meaning to our lives. What do you think?
It all makes great sense. It all really does line up with that. And I have so many more questions about making the meaning and how to do that properly.
Let's talk about the first step that I can think of about that. And of course, this is my own prejudice and bias, is you keep listening to your dreams. Keep listening to your dreams and keep ecstatic dancing. Keep doing that for sure. That is
I like the sound of that prescription.
yeah, yeah, because as you pointed out early in our conversation, it all on its own has meaning. It's a spiritual act. It's got that relational aspect to it. So by all means, keep doing that and keep paying attention to your dreams. Your dreams will lead you in the way that you are to go. Another thing that I really recommend is some kind of creative response to the dream. And a creative response meaning to make something, draw something, obtain something to honor this dream. And since you mentioned that, how old is your, do you have more than one child?
I have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old.
Okay. My guess is, and I've got grandchildren that are a teeny bit older than that, but my guess is, I bet you've got a crate full of stuff.
I'm staring at it right now. Yes.
A crate full of stuff.
And just to my left.
Uh-huh. And glitter might be in there, and rhinestones might be in there. And if they're not, you go get you some and make something, anything. I mean, you can make fake this and bury those rhinestones in. I mean, you can make, like, I could see you making little balls of clay and sticking the rhinestones on it. I don't know. Or anything you like, any part of that. Carry the dream with you the next time you go to ecstatic dance. Just carry it in there with you. Make something, write something, journal about it, something to honor this dream and to ask for another dream.
Okay.
Now, this dream stuff that we're doing and that we do is in the same world as your ecstatic dance. It is not in the world of our, every day, get the dishes done, get the laundry done. It hovers just above that. And the fact that you value ecstatic dance means there's room for you to value these dreams, all your dreams. At the very least, start writing them down. Even if you don't work them through like this, you can start writing them down.
Okay.
And they will show you how to make meaning. They will show you. Aligning with a creative, anything that calls you into creativity, do that. When we align with the creative, we are aligning with the creator. And that will lead you in some pretty fantastic places.
Okay. I don't think of myself as a creative or artistic person. Mm-hmm. And in fact, just through play with the kids, mm-hmm. I've done more little art projects and things like that than I think I have since I was a child. Wonderful. More work with drawing and art. So it's foreign to me to tap into the creative, but I'm going to try to do it.
Now's the time. Now's the mm-hmm. time. So I will share with you and everyone a wonderful resource that was actually just written up in the Washington Post this past week. Shockingly, I think it was Washington Post or maybe the New York Times. About 30 years ago, this wonderful woman by the name of Julia Cameron, she wrote a book, and it's really more of a kind of a workbook called The Artist's Way. And she makes the case that we are all artists of our own lives, whether we feel like we are or not. We are all co-creating with something greater than ourselves our own lives. And in this workbook, she gives lots of exercises on how to tap into that creativity, which is all within every single one of us, whether it is latent, hidden in the shadows, or whether you're, making stuff for a living. We are all artists of our own lives. And two of the exercises that she recommends include something called morning pages, in which you write in a 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. You write 3 of those every morning before you even get out of bed. Complete stream of consciousness. Just write 3 pages. Right. Mm. And what she says is, for the first 2 weeks, it'll all just be whining, griping, and garbage. But after that, if you stick with it, after that, something really interesting happens. Some real creative stuff comes up. And the other thing she really likes is an artist date, in which you make a date with yourself every week, put it on your calendar to go do something. Don't do something artistic necessarily, but you can, but go see art. Or even just go into a craft store and look at all the stuff. Or go into a fabric store and look at all the different fabrics and textures. Or go into a junk shop and just look at things. Allow your senses to be fed, so to speak, with an artist date. Certainly go to galleries and art exhibits and things like that, of course. Or go to a concert. Music is art, but every week, very intentionally touch in with the creative somehow. So this is just the coolest stuff. So I'm throwing that out there. If nothing else, go to your local bookstore and at least look at that book, even if you don't buy it. It's really good stuff. Okay. Do you have any other questions or comments? And how was this process? Did it feel okay?
Oh man, Karen, this is so interesting. This is so interesting. I've never had the experience of having a dream worked through as this was, and I'm a little surprised. I'll be honest. I'm surprised, and maybe that's just how it goes. Like I always question things. That is there meaning, or did I imagine the meaning? Did I create the meaning? Because that's how our brains work. We see meaning where we want it to be, where we want there to be meaning. I'm a little surprised that we were able to find these ties to life. And I know you're probably not surprised at all because this is what you do all the time. But being on this, I don't want to say skeptical, but I guess it is. I'm just a little skeptical of things I don't understand, as we all are. And I found this meaningful and insight building, hopefully, and maybe also a little comforting that there could be something I could actually do here to help me further understand my part in these unpleasant things in my life, to try to avoid them from happening again.
Yeah. Excellent. Oh, I'm glad it was a good experience for you. I'm very, very glad. And thank you so much for being the dreamer today. I just appreciate it so very much. And it was a great dream. It really was.
You're welcome.